Roundtable on Teaching Internet Governance. My name is Farzone Bedi, and I am a short-term consultant for Internet Governance Forum Secretariat to come up in a bottom-up, multi-stakeholder manner with a global Internet governance syllabus. So I'm going to just go through what the goal of the syllabus is, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the format of this session, and we will take it from there. And I'm so glad to see so many educators of internet governance today here, and it's a great day to have a session about teaching internet governance as it is one of the most inspiring educators' birthday, Martin Luther King. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and tell you a little bit about what we are doing. And okay. So the Global Internet Governance syllabus, it's a modular syllabus, and to support communities around the world to design their own internet governance courses. The materials are developed in a bottom-up manner, and the syllabus is only a guide. It's just to help empower communities and educators around the world to be able to teach internet governance. So the approach is we do some kind of content analysis of current programs of internet governance schools and other educational programs, and they can be academic programs or specialized program. We also aim to provide a handbook on who teaches internet governance and what topics, in what regions, and also a how-to guide on how you can use this, this syllabus. And I think that, okay, so, and analysis of learning methods such as practicums that internet governance schools usually have, and hands-on experiences and test drives, and this is a short-term project, so while your feedback is more than welcome, and I'm looking forward to them, bear in mind that I only have until February 14th. Okay, so what is this today's session? Anyone can be a speaker. We don't have a list of speakers. And please raise your hand. And this is I haven't done many of these kind of speaker list roundtable. So help me here by contributing and just contributing to the discussions. And then note that we have 6 questions and limited time. Each question is allocated 10 minutes, and we might not be able to get all of you to contribute to answer these questions. If you have feedback, you can send it to the you can also like write it down in this Google Doc that I have provided the link, and I think I can also provide the link to the Google Doc in chat in a minute. Okay, so without further ado, the first part of our discussion is designing an internet governance course, and there are 3 questions, and we start with who is the audience for internet governance education, and based on your program, what you have been teaching, or programs that you actually attended, who is your audience? Who are you actually teaching, and what are the goals? So if I can see the, okay, So if you can raise your hand and just respond to this question about who your audience is, who are your students. Okay, so this is the academic educational community. We are not shy to speak, right? All right, great, Tobias. Go ahead, please. Do I have to unmute you?
Hi, everybody. Tobias Mahler, University of Oslo. I work at the law faculty, and that's basically also our starting point. So when we teach internet governance, we do so for law students in their last year of education, either international students coming to Norway to study ICT law more broadly, and then internet governance is one of their subjects, or regular law students. So, but that also implies that when teaching internet governance, we have a strong focus on legal perspectives or quasi-legal perspectives, including contracts and the like.
Great, thank you. And then Dima's hand is up, and then we go to Esther. Dima, go ahead.
Sure. Dmitry Epstein, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I actually teach in 2 units. I teach in the School of Public Policy and in the Department of Communication. So I view myself mostly as a social scientist. So in the School of Public Policy, I mean, we are working with people who get a degree in masters in public policy. The idea is to give them more awareness and a little bit of hold on to this link between internet and public policy, internet governance. And for communication students, I think the emphasis is more kind of on the institutional aspect of, communication flow governance, and this is where internet governance comes kind of into play. I guess there's like multiple audiences that, we teach to, and how we do it probably will vary, but we'll talk about this later.
Great, thank you, Dima. And Nadia?
Thank you very much. My name is Nadia, and I'm today here independently because I do my PhD somewhere, but I don't teach there. So previously, I've been actually invited to go into non-academic places. So not specifically specified like universities, but more like trade schools. So if you think about fashion design or kind of business management, but not academic kind of MBA places, but they're very interested about how the future of the internet is developing, and for them to kind of understand how to engage with that, or how to get their voices up, because sometimes they don't really understand how to engage with this information, and the academic work is sometimes really difficult to comprehend. So they asked me to come in to give kind of an introduction to the internet, and to have a bit of understanding of, if they wanted to talk about specific issues, where can they go? And they usually think I go to the UN or go to the EU, but they don't realize what kind of other places they could engage with. So I give them an entrance there.
Okay, fantastic. And Esther, and please also tell us your affiliation when you start speaking. Thank you. Go ahead, Esther.
Yeah, my name is Esther. I'm working for the Internet Society as training and e-learning director. I will go off video because I think my net is not very great. Okay. So in regard to who we work with, we offer online courses that are open to the public. And our target is those who want to understand how the internet is governed, those who want to learn about the history of the internet, those who would want to learn about internet actors and stakeholder groups, those who would want to understand internet policy principles, regulatory frameworks, internet infrastructure standards, protocols, and systems, and those who would want to participate in shaping and the future of the internet. Those are the target groups and the people that we look for when we offer our courses, and our courses have been developed with those people in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. And Satish, you're next.
Thanks, Fuzzy. This is Satish for the record. Apologies for not having the video. So I am associated with two schools, the Asia Pacific School on Internet Governance, ApSIG, which we had the face-to-face edition last month, and the India School on Internet Governance, which we had the fifth virtual edition last time. So both these schools are open to anyone who is desirous of joining the Internet Governance community. And these are short-term schools, 3 days to 4 days, maybe some 1 or 2 sessions later. And the objective is basically to kind of introduce the content in Internet governance, the community, and the processes that are kind of practiced in the domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish. And then I can see Riccardo's hand is up.
Hi, thank you. I'm Riccardo, University of Bologna. Like Nadia, I'm a PhD student, but I'm not teaching, so I'm bringing rather a student perspective, if you want. Rather than focusing on who the target of our courses is, I'd like to chip in on who surprisingly isn't our target. And as far as I can see from the interest we attract in Youth Internet Governance Forum Italy, for example, there are surprisingly few people from the IT sector, few people that are in STEM that actually participate in Internet governance and want to study Internet governance, whereas those who are most attracted come, broadly speaking, from the field of politics. This is my contribution. Thank you.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you. And Chris, you're next.
Thanks, Fuzzy. Hi, everyone. I'll be brief. I wanted to jump in, though, just because I think I'm probably bringing a perspective that hasn't really been seen here. So I work for RIPE-NCC, one of the regional internet registries. And I mean, we're involved in a lot of different educational activities. We've had RIPE-NCC staff contributing to various summer schools on internet governance since they kicked off with the European one more than a decade ago. But I think what we find is that we have a very multi-directional approach. So we're contributing to those kind of multi-stakeholder, holistic educational activities. But at the same time, we're trying to, and to that, we're bringing our very technical perspective. But then to our own community, the RIPE community, our membership, we're trying to bring a more holistic approach ourselves to sort of present, okay, this is why this whole area of internet governance is actually relevant for you as an operator, as an engineer, as someone who's in the technical community there. So yeah, there are a couple of different kinds of audiences that we're engaged with in quite different ways.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. And Kwaku.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kwaku Antwi from Ghana. I'm a member of the Internet Governance Forum Steering Committee, and I'm particularly in charge of the Ghana School of Internet Governance. And as I relate to your question first, I think one of the things that we always have a problem with is trying to break down what the Internet School of Governance is to the most minute person in the grassroots. And I think one of the things that we need to consider is also the language barriers coming from Ghana and Africa in the multilingual settings that we have. And that will also look at your core of the students and how you were able to target the various groupings and underrepresented people. And this is something I think we've been struggling with and we're trying to do as it relates to the different modes that it might take, whether it's virtual or physical meetings. And what we find is that there's a need for greater collaboration in terms of the content of the core of the courses and in translating it into various forms, whether it's in text, it's in videos, or is even in a pictorial format. So I think these are some things we can toy about or we can think about as we go forward in answering your questions, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kwaku, and thank you, everybody. So we have like a range of specialized programs for journalists and legislators, and also like the academics that teach public policy students and law students, as well as the question that who we are not teaching and we should also include. So then the next question, which is related to the first question, that's why we started it with that, is how to decide an internet governance course, what an internet governance course should cover. How do you go about choosing the internet governance courses that that you teach, internet governance topic and modules that you teach at your school or in the online program? So Esther's hand is up. Esther, go ahead, please.
I'm trying to go quickly before my net goes off because we are having a very heavy downpour. So I think educationally, you can design a course for anything, for anybody in the world. The most important thing, based on your question, is the target audience. What do you include in a course? That is what you have asked Vasena. It depends on the target audience. For us, our course is targeted on policymakers. So our content is in that direction. If it is for law students, like one of the colleagues has said, then the content is in that direction. So I think that is the biggest determinant. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther, for that. So the question, so one factor is the audience, of course, that who you're designing it for, but maybe we can like talk a little bit more about like what sort of topics, what are the other factors that you consider, maybe later, since Wolfgang's hand is up as well. Go ahead, Wolfgang.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have a problem with my video, but if you hear me, that's fine. So I think what, and I was a little bit late, what Chris has said, you know, is really important, because if you work on a curriculum, you have to ask, you know, for whom I'm doing this. And, you know, the internet governance ecosystem knows so many different animals and plants and whatsoever. That means if you want to transfer knowledge, you have to look exactly that you have to feed the elephants in a different way than the tigers or the ants in the forest. So I think this is the first thing, that you have to look, you know, for your audience, and you have to build the program, the curriculum, around the special needs of the program. And then you have also different layers. You know, when we started it 15 years ago, I had a discussion with Jovan from Diplo Foundation, because Diplo Foundation was a very early starter, and Diplo Foundation normally teaches the basis. And in each academic world, you have a start with a PhD, and then you have a master course, and then you write a PhD. You start with a bachelor, then you have a master, and up with a PhD. And I think this is also what you have to take into consideration. If you want to just deliver the basics for outsiders or newcomers, if you have a group which has already a certain experiences, then you can go one step deeper, and on the highest level for very specialized groups, then you can deliver also high quality of content. And my final point is, because we are, you know, the summer school is put into what we have called a multi-stakeholder environment. So also in our school in Meissen, we are selecting carefully the fellows, that we have fellows from different stakeholder groups, from business, from technical community, from government. And so also we select the faculty, so that we have different backgrounds if it comes to the faculty. But if you want to go to the highest level, you have to have very special groups, and then you have, if you want to go deeper, and if you offer courses, for instance, for judges or for the military or for lawmakers, or so, then you have to redesign the program according to the special needs. And this has also consequences for how to build the faculty. To make the long intervention short, there is no one size fits all. It depends, you know, from the audience. It depends from the circumstances in a critical moment, and then it depends also, you know, from the day-to-day developments. So if I compare my slides from the year 2005 with the slides I have today, then I say 70 years have changed the world dramatically. So that means you have to reinvent the program every year. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much. And Esther has put in chat that they also like consider like the policies governing the internet and the regulatory frameworks that guide the internet as a topic based on their audience. And what I'm hearing is that if the audience is a multi-stakeholder audience, then there are like a wide variety of topics. As Mahi says here, the main thing is values, because we can talk about internet governance and different stakeholders to help to relate and then move to the broader issues that will help to bridge the circle. So if you have a multi-stakeholder audience, my perception is that you kind of like choose broader topics that speaks to all of the stakeholders. Kwaku, your hand is up. And also, yes, there is a very interesting question in chat about whether anyone here teaches children. I don't know, I have not come across, but also like one of the... Kwaku, go ahead. Oh, no? Okay. So, and Wolfgang's
Sorry, no, I have to lower my hand from previously.
All right, no problem. Okay, if there are no other points on how you actually choose topics, we heard from the European school. Anybody else from the school? Okay, Dima's hands up.
Yes, so I'll just again like bringing in more of kind of social science perspective to this. So when kind of I design my courses, for me it's important also to link it to social theory. So it's not just what internet governance is, but again like why it matters in light of social science theory. But again, that's academia.
Okay, thank you. So, and Dr. Govind, please go ahead, take the floor.
Thank you, Arjane, and good to see this program coming up, because it's a very important area, because many of the internet schools in various parts of the world are hobbling around many topics which one doesn't know which is important, which is not, whether it should suit the local clientele, whether it's a global clientele, or whether it is. But most of the time what we have seen that in India, in the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance, that many times the audience is quite heterogeneous, very diverse. It is not single like law students or the academia alone, industry alone, or the policymakers alone. So we get assortment of all kinds of, the audience and the participants. So it is best to make, as Wolfgang has said, that as the topics and the internet governance itself is evolving dynamically year on year. So we should have an assortment of all kinds of topics which will help the audience to understand what is internet governance, what is access, what is social media governance, data governance, so all kinds of digital economy. So that's the way we organized the recent Asia Pacific School on Internet Governance held in Sri Lanka. So that gives a flavor of touch of all kinds of topics which is hovering around globally and which is relevant to the local also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Govind. So we can now move on to the third question, which is about how can we ensure a diversity of the ideas, perspectives, and faculty? And the question here is that we have various regional programs, and there are schools of internet governance that have been like leading the educational efforts on this as well. But how can we actually ensure a diversity of ideas among the underrepresented communities? That how can we provide them with a platform, and how do we, in designing the internet governance course, how do we actually bring those perspectives? What has been your approach in bringing those perspectives in? And I see Wagas' hand is up. Go ahead, Wagas.
Hi, thank you, Fazani. So I'm Wagas Hassan. I am representing the Pakistan School on Internet Governance, and I've also been a member of program committee for the ApSIG and APR IGF. Many of you might not know, but Pakistan School on Internet Governance was the first national school on Internet governance in the Asia Pacific. We started in 2015. And coming to your topic about diversity, what the different thing that we do about our school is that we don't have a central location. The first one was held at the federal capital, but from then on, each year we go to a different city and we hold this school in the provincial capitals. Of course, since for the last 2 years, we have been doing it virtually. But that has actually expanded our horizon about how this syllabus or the curriculum should be developed. Because we also have a feedback system for our school. So we take back feedback from our audience about how and which courses actually they preferred. And then we improve it for the next year, and then we improve it for the next year. So in a way, now our curriculum is more representative of the more about what the national need on IG is at the moment and what kind of a policy discussion should be there. So that is how we address a diversity factor in our curriculum. In terms of the diversity within the organizing committee, which is, I think, is very important. We do have a very good balance of males and females within our organizing committee. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Wagas. Satish, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Satish, for the record. So 2 things I'd like to mention is, one is that we do have programs for youth. The youth IGF, it's there in several countries, so I think that is covered. Another thing that ApSIG is currently discussing with the DC on disability is a specialized internet governance training for people living with disabilities. That's being planned with Nnenna, who's part of the DC. And she had taken part in our edition held last month. And there it was proposed that why don't we have a specialized program for people with disabilities? And that's being worked out now. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Satish. Ginger.
Good morning from me. Great to see so many people I've worked with. Lovely idea. It's just beautiful. I feel like I'm at the IGF. I think that these are all amazing ideas. I'd like to go back again to what Wolfgang said, because I think that's key to how we reach the diversity of people and bring in new people. There are 2 major points. There are so many, so I'll try to be short. One is we mentioned multilingual possibilities. I don't think we're going to get a diversity of participants and a diversity of ideas and levels if we don't have multilingual options. So I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself. My name is Ginger Paque. I've worked with Diplo Foundation and the IGF for many years. So we need to, I think, include a diversity of students and a diversity of marginalized or underrepresented, unheard voices in our curriculum and in our teaching staffs. because that's the only way we're going to actually understand them and learn from them, so that we include all of these options. Another thing that I'd like to emphasize that Wolfgang touched upon is that it's really important to have the diversity we have here, that there are many different levels. Diplo Foundation has long reached out to very basic foundation levels, and that advantage there is that we bring in new people who have not yet joined. So we get the new perspectives, we get the youth, we get the outlying ideas. And then others, like so many of you wonderful experts, are dealing with issues that are far more advanced and complex. So we need to have that complete range. One other point on the diversity is that I see, it's going to sound strange, the Americas, particularly South America, is underrepresented. So Central and South America, I'd like to make a call out, Sergio. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd like to make a point on that we need to do some outreach to Latin America. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ginger. And Esther, you're next.
Okay, diversity, we approach it through two ways. One, our courses are in 3 languages, now actually in 4 languages: English, Spanish, French, and Arabic. That way we meet, we are able to, target a wider audience. Number 2, we have different programs. Career fellowships, mid-career fellowships, and youth ambassadors. All of them targeting different age groups. Like the early career fellowships, it's usually for very young people, like people in university in ISOC. And of course, the third one, Vasena, which is open to the general public, for anybody, for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. And Lianna's hand is up too. Lianna, please.
Thank you very much. This is Lianna Galstyan from the Armenia School. For the diversity issues and aspects that you've discussed, I want to share our perspectives. What we did actually for a couple of years, we have the school only for the students, but then we opened the opportunity for everyone, for all stakeholders. And the last year, the school was specifically designed for journalists. So that kind of way, changing the program for a target groups, we make sure that we bring the program, the curriculum to different stakeholders and participants. And on the aspect of disability, actually, we have a participant, and that is in our program, making sure that everyone in the community, irrespective of their age and profession, etc., they would know the difficulties and the human rights and the things going on, the current laws, etc., happening in the country in this aspect regarding the disability and web accessibility. So we try to bring different aspects in our program and cover those things, giving a more diversity, both in participation and in a program content. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lianna. And next is Dima.
Right, so kind of to add 2 more cents to this. In general, I think that acknowledging that we need this diversity is like the awareness probably is the first step to start thinking about how to address diversity in all this particular context, right, of we audiences, your kind of faculty constraints, etc., things that Wolfgang mentioned before and Ginger talked about. In my teaching, right, I purposely reach out to people who would kind of challenge what I teach, right? Bringing diverse kind of epistemological perspectives, making sure, and like one good thing that came out of Corona is that virtual guest speakers are much more common these days, right? So I make a point of inviting people from other countries, from, again, different disciplines, bringing in not just academics, since I teach in the university, also to bring in practitioners to talk about internet governance. So that's how I work and think about this, also to make sure that I have a blend of men and women represented on my speaker roster. That would be it at this point. Thank you.
Okay, great. And just before we go to Riccardo, Ginger in chat is mentioning Olga's amazing work in Latin America and South America. Olga has been running one of the oldest schools on internet governance in Latin America and South America. And her capacity building effort is always appreciated. So that's now, Riccardo, go ahead.
Thank you. There's an interesting conversation in the chat on how merit-based criteria for assigning fellowships are actually biased against underrepresented groups, and this is not just the case in internet governance, but in most sectors of society. I had the chance to work on this with other people on a different topic, not related to internet governance. But I'd like to bring some input from there. So I think things like summer schools should perhaps, of course, when funds allow, because we know there will be constraints, but envisage fellowship for historically underrepresented groups. They are just targeted to people in those groups, allowed only for people in those groups, and this also entails an element of trust, because sometimes what constitutes a marginalized community or a historically underrepresented community might not be visible. So in a way, when someone applies, they get to, in quote unquote, self-certify their belonging to that particular group, and so there needs to be a trust-based system that allows a person to say, yes, I belong to this group and I want to apply to this special fellowship to this group. And in this way, people from historically marginalized communities can be brought into the internet governance community. It's one way, it's not going to be the best, it's not going to be complete, but it's something, and it's been appreciated in other fields, and I think it's a good experiment probably to go ahead with also in internet governance teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Riccardo. So we are at the end of the first segment of our questions. Please do not leave. We have 3 more questions and a lot of discussion to have. So basically what I'm hearing is that to understand and to include diverse perspectives, we need to listen to what the fellows and the participants of these schools and educational programs have to say as well. And we also need to move away from ideology, and this is a more academic perspective, but perhaps move away from the ideology that we like, and bring people who don't necessarily agree with us in these educational efforts as lecturers and speakers and guest speakers. Okay, so if there are no other comments overall, Chris, your hand is up.
Hello. Yeah. No, I wanted to comment, I think, just a little bit on some of the recent comments there, and about sort of the merit-based and the need for fellowships and diversity, etc. Now, I mean, I think first it's useful to note that I know Euro Summer School has been doing that kind of specific diversity funding for developing areas from very early days. I think if Sandra was here, I'm sure she'd be talking about that very loudly. But so that's a good thing. But I think also one of the key points, at least, and maybe this is my understanding rather than other people's, of developing a consistent, high quality global syllabus is to allow for more venues, more opportunities, and to maybe make that gatekeeper role of how do we judge who gets through and who gets to be part of these summer schools or anything else less of an issue, less of a question. So we're actually allowing internet governance education to be more decentralized. So I at least that's what I think would be a really useful thing to come out of this project.
Oh, that is a very interesting feedback. Thank you, Chris. We'll decentralized internet governance education. Okay, so well, I think that's a really good segue to the second part, which is about delivering an internet governance course, and maybe we can also talk about how we can decentralize it. But so the question is how to choose the best mode of delivery for an educational effort on internet governance. Now, the thing is that, for example, you have lectures and they do the traditional lectures, or you have guest speakers, and sometimes you have debates. I've seen, or you have practicum. What is the best way, considering your audience, what is the best way of delivering it? Or it can be like remote participation with forums that you pose questions and kind of like engage people, or you can have like these mock I saw in one program there was a mock ICANN meeting that people used. So what is the what is the best mode of delivery? How do you choose that? And Wolfgang's hand is up. Wolfgang, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Hassan. I just wanted to comment on what Chris has just said. When the pandemic started, we had a number of discussions, how to manage this remotely or in hybrid form. And, one of the idea which came was, why not to create, also based on the experience Glenn McKnight made with the virtual summer school, to establish more or less a permanent online course, which is based on a number of key video lectures and reading material. So when we started 15 years ago, so I come from a university. Normally, if you start a master course, so you have to define to the ministry what are the basics, the must know, what you must know, so that you can get a certificate at the end. So we try to develop, what is the so-called must know in internet governance, so that you are really a knowledgeable part of the whole family, and with specific knowledge. So basic things you have to know from the management of critical resources, from legislation, from the history, from some economic implications. So there is a limited number of basics which you have to know. And I think this could be the idea now with you as which has the helm for the moment, that we develop a limited number of such, I would say, classical basic lectures. So what Avri is doing for protocols, for instance, or what Marco is doing for IP addresses, or what others do for TLD management or the history or whatsoever else, a limited number. So, and this could be summarized in the website, and with recommended reading, so that you would have not only a decentralized summer school as proposed by Chris, but it would be a permanent summer school. So probably after 2 years, you could have a look at whether this is still there, or whether there is a need for adjustments. But I could imagine if we keep the lectures rather general, not to go into the day-to-day business or what you have said into ideological positions, but to say, okay, this is the neutral knowledge. This is what you have to know. So based on this, and then supported by reading also from the 90s, and not only the latest article from Foreign Affairs or from something else, I think this would be an interesting project, and this could be achieved under the umbrella of the IGF. It would be also universal. It needs a lot of time, so that means if you get a better contract, you could push for it. So, but this was my comment to what Chris has just said, and I think this is a brilliant idea when Chris says, okay, to have the small face-to-face meetings, this is important, this is great. Everybody who was in Meissen knows, that the spirit of this small and old monastery brings some extra value in the face-to-face communication. But on a general level, we could have both. So there is no either or. It is we can continue with our small summer schools, but to have a more universal platform, which is always available, also for underserved regions, for people who cannot get a fellowship or are unable to travel to various places. This would be another good idea. Back to you, Hassan.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. Yes, and as you mentioned, Glenn has done a great job in running this virtual school and internet governance. And there are various also perhaps more specialized academic programs that teach internet governance, but in various ways. They're sometimes like not wholly focused only on internet governance, but they're focused on cybersecurity and other aspects of it. And now I shouldn't talk much. So Gergana, you're next.
Hi, thanks. I hope you can hear me. Gergana Petrova from RIPE NCC. So the question between online and offline education is, I think, quite large. It's beyond the internet governance sphere. But just to share my experience, I've been both an attendee in internet governance schools and also a speaker in recent years. And I found, so the in-person schools offer a lot of motivated attendees, but also a lot of motivated speakers. Why? Because the threshold to attend is higher. There is a lot of financial resources that are needed, and also time investment. So what you get once you're there, what you get out of it is, I think, more than what you get out of online schools. But as Chris talked about gatekeeping, I also think there is a flip side to in-person schools that, not everybody can be there. And I'm not talking just about the financials, even though the financials is a big side of it. Developing countries, people from developing countries or certain backgrounds are almost automatically excluded unless there is significant financial help available to them. But that also excludes, for example, new parents. You can't go away from your kid for a week to attend a school. And so, it basically, you get more out of it once you're there, but it decreases diversity of the people that can attend. And then the opposite is true for the online schools. In the past, in 2021, I managed to be a speaker in quite a large number of those schools, and I don't think that I would have been able to do so if I had to attend in person each and every one of them. Just physically speaking, it wouldn't have been possible. So that's the flip side. And I think it would depend on, one of your first questions: who is your audience? Are you trying to cast a wide net, and how much gatekeeping you want to do, I guess.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, this is a very valuable comment about how remote participation can help us decentralize and teaching internet governance, and also kind of reduce the gatekeeping as it happens. But sometimes there are some programs that are specific for certain audience, and that is fine. But remote participation and online participation the past 2 years, I think it has showed us how we can open up and get more participants around the world. And maybe we can think a little bit more about how we can make the networking aspect online a little bit closer to networking offline, with like breakout rooms and getting people to get to know each other. I mean, it's not like face to face, but there are some ideas out there that I can like jot down. Okay, Adam Paque from ICANN. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks, Farzaneh. Yes, so as you said, Adam Paque. I work for ICANN and I'm also a member of the MAC. So one of my tasks as a MAC member is to act as a liaison to the dynamic coalitions. So, and particularly the coalition on schools of internet governance, because I've been involved with that pre-MAC. I wanted to comment really, it's follow up on what Wolfgang was saying about the basics of internet governance and perhaps trying to get some core lectures available. I'd very much like, I think the design you have, Farzaneh, for a model syllabus is excellent. And I think that, you know, what you proposed with a set of core elements that are sort of could be or might be considered for any school is a very good starting point, and how the internet works, etc. As Tobias mentioned at the when he spoke at the beginning of this, he mentioned the specifics that he, as a law professor, adds to the type of schools that he does. So we have core elements and then specifics, and again that goes to your model. And then there's the topical areas, the things that come up each year as new and important internet-related policy and governance. AI governance has been something we heard a lot about last year. So I think the whole design is excellent, and it's absolutely the right direction. So core elements, specifics, and then topical. And in that area, again, going back to what Wolfgang was saying, I think it would be useful to start trying to look at those basics. What are the elements that the dynamic coalition could offer in terms of online resources, lectures, and so on that we have recorded? From an ICANN point of view, I'm talking to my colleagues because we tend to participate in schools around the world in various ways, and we tend to give presentations. So around the DNS, I will try to share with you a set of lectures that I think are online, that cover the basics of the domain name system. And hopefully will be evergreen, because that's another thing with online resources, is that you can find something that was excellent 3 years ago, but has been superseded by different thoughts or developments or what have you. So that evergreen element is important, but I'll try and make sure to get those presentations to the group, or the links to them, I should say. And I think that's probably it. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for doing this. It's really cool.
Thank you, Adam. Those were great feedback. And by the way, everybody, I'm looking for feedback on the approach, and I will incorporate them as much as I can this short period of time. But let me know what you think about the style and the design. As Adam did, also if you have a syllabus BM program, I see that in chat there are some schools that like have programs, but if I don't have access to them, I cannot like incorporate them in the syllabus. So if you can send me those, that would be great. Also, okay, so Dima's hand is up. Dima, go ahead.
Sure. So I think a few things have already been said or mentioned in the chat by now, like the idea of a hybrid, which I think is something that we were forced kind of to experiment with during COVID, and I think there are a lot of positives to this. I want to maybe kind of echo a couple of points. One made by Avri in the chat, that knowledge transfer is one approach to teaching, providing people with experiences is another way to approach teaching, and I think there may be place for both. But also kind of bouncing off Wolfgang's point about kind of a permanent course, online course on internet governance, I would actually also kind of take into account what Adam just said about this being a very dynamic area, and things that were, you know, relevant or canonical 2 years ago may not be in the same status today. So I would like to push this idea in slightly perhaps different direction. And since we're talking internet here, kind of commons, global commons of internet governance educational resources, right? Whether those lectures, whether those teaching materials that this community can share, and perhaps using some kind of shared structure that will hopefully come out of this project, not people could use and adapt and build on it and have this resources that would also allow for greater diversity, being it held in person, online, hybrid mode, whatever. But I think it would be pretty cool to have global commons of internet governance teaching resources, including texts, assignments, videos of lectures, or a database of potential guest lectures, which people do informally, but maybe having a more organized ways to tackle it could be interesting. So I'll just put it out there.
Thank you very much. Nnenna, you're next.
Thanks. I hope you can hear me. I was just about typing my thoughts. So I've designed some internet governance lessons. Of course, I trained through Diplo, and now I do African, West Africa, and I intervene in all the spaces. What I would want to suggest to us is that there is pedagogy on one side. I mean, I've been teaching in other areas that is not internet governance. So in any time that we want to engage in learning, there are two things that we need to take into consideration. There is a thematic issue, and then there is the art of teaching and learning, which is pedagogy. I have seen that it works better when people meet in person, whether it's going to be icebreaker, whether it's going to be the emotional and sentimental attachment to other learners or to faculty. But the other thing that I was going to put here is the capacity of learners to impart what they've learned, to communicate it. In teaching internet governance across Africa, what I have seen is that many people have the head knowledge, but they are not able to express it. And if you go to the general online internet governance spaces, you find that many people in many cultures find it difficult to express themselves. So that capacity to express yourself in an international platform, irrespective of who is across the table, is one of the things that we have not really factored in. It's not a syllabus thing, it's a motivating thing, it's a sharing of experience thing, it is a skill in public speaking, plus self-esteem, plus understanding why you need to do this. And so when I have had to take on younger people, sometimes I have to hit my hands on the table, scare people, shake them up and say, let's get this thing. Imagine you have to speak in front of the IGF, global IGF. How do you communicate this? How do you do this? And we actually do the physical thing about walking up to the stage and arranging yourself and saying, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. You see, that kind of thing, that ability to translate our internet governance knowledge as a gift to other people, as knowledge, as information, as positioning to other people, is what we haven't captured in all of these schools. I'm done.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. And there have been a really good practicum and also all sorts of role play that they do at a summer school, and Dima also in academia. It seems like that's also a trend. And your point about people being in roles and getting used to it is very much taken by others. So Raymond, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Raymond Mamata from the Ghana School on Internet Governance. I'm the founder and president of EGIFA. We organize the Ghana School on Internet Governance. I'd like to touch on two basic things. One on the inclusion and the curricular aspect. In terms of inclusion, we have a special selection stage for the youth and for the ladies. So we don't include them in the general selection. We separate them while doing the selection. So we have a quota for the youth and we have a quota for the ladies as well. I hope you can hear me. Then, yes. In terms of organizing the program, we can all agree that internet governance cannot be learned within 1 week, 2 weeks. So our approach is we have the fellows to undertake series of online learning programs where they learn basically on internet governance and various approaches for whole 1 month. Then those who pass through this online learning first before they are able to now progress to the face-to-face session. So it's part of the selection stages again. So our school is very intensive. And during the face-to-face session too, one of the main things that we concentrate on the last day, which I personally teach on that, is how to engage in the internet governance ecosystem after the fellowship. So from the fellowship, what do they need to do? Where do they do it? For instance, how do they join IGF? How do they join ICANN? How do they join the various regional internet registries? And what do they need to do? I teach them on all these things so that our fellows after the program can know what exactly to do so that they wouldn't go wondering, in this larger ecosystem, how do we go about what next? So this is the approach that the Ghana School on Internet Governance does, which is quite unique and different from most of the other schools. And one bragging thing I want to mention last is all our fellows, we give them a ghanasig.org email address where they can use all over in all their engagements after the fellowship. It's one of the main things that we also do, to give them that bragging right and joy that they are part of the GhanaSig.
That's a really, really important point, Raymond, that you're raising, and that's what do we do as a follow-up, like this means of delivery of the internet governance course, and how do we actually continue engaging and keeping the audience interested and engaged with the activities of internet governance. Some courses do like professional courses on internet governance, and like people later on get engaged, and some are just for general public, so that goes back to our audience as well, but I think that a plan for follow-ups is very important. And the next speaker is Hans Klein. Hi, Hans.
Hello, good morning. I'm Hans Klein. I'm from Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Thank you, Farzi, for organizing this. Good to see you again. Good to see many of the people here again. I have a comment about course content, something to think about when we design these classes. And one of them is the dimension from the abstract to the specific, from theory to empirical information, and finding a balance in when we teach a class on internet governance and recognizing the strengths of both kinds. I think there's a great strength in a lot of internet governance classes on the specifics, on the empirics, where you look at the specific institutions that matter, understanding their history, what's happened in the past, what are the particular procedures in these institutions, what are some of the current issues, maybe who are some of the people involved. And I think many of us also, and I think this is perhaps a little less well represented sometimes, is pushing it to an abstract level and understanding it from a theoretical perspective, some of the issues that come up in internet governance. What is a regulatory institution? What's a standards making organization? How do they differ? How do we understand the legitimacy of institutions? How do we locate internet governance in the international system, and so on? And I think the theoretical view brings us to a higher level, and for some it might seem too academic, but it carries concrete benefits even for practitioners to understand how policy processes will vary across institutions, across governments, and so on. How regulatory, I'm familiar obviously with American regulatory institutions, the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and then to be able to compare that to something like the Cyber Administration of China. How do they organize policy processes differently in such a way that the outcomes can vary, and so on. So the theoretical dimension is something, balancing theory and practice is something to be considered by anyone teaching. And the benefits of bringing internet governance to a higher theoretical level, I think, are quite substantial and serve people in the long run, the students and the instructors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this was about both design and delivery of the internet governance course, and I think that the connection between how we can connect these theories to also something useful for practitioners to consider, and knowledge that can be used by them is very important, as you pointed out, Hans. So next we go to Shridip.
Yeah, this is Shridip. So I think when we designed the IG course, I think there is a great need to have two strategies. The first level of strategy is the knowledge transfer, and the second is the engagement. Because a lot of the times what happens is in different IG schools that have participated and have become a speaker in, what I've noticed is, engagement is something that that has to be, to some extent you have to tell people about what to do, right? So that has to be very clearly laid down, because a lot of the times we just focus on the knowledge transfer, and when they come out, they don't know, they are completely blank about what to do. So as Nnenna and Raymond said, these are the very important things when we design. At design phase, if you have that clarity, because once the value is set, then things are very clear. And then you need a certain motivation. So that motivation has to be there when you design the course, and that really helps to create an impact at your community level. Because these days with the communication boom, with the social media, it doesn't take a lot of effort. I mean to say, you have mobile phone, you have your community within your reach. So it is very comfortable for the youngster. So we have to, dig into all these new engagement techniques, and, we have to tell them that, these are the things. So if we do that, then things are like really easy, and they go back to the community and they start to work on. So that is very important at design level, I think. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we have covered quite a lot. I think we also touched upon the other questions, but because one of the main goals of this project is to help underrepresented communities around the world to be able to learn and teach internet governance, I'd like to ask this question directly from you. That what do you think we should have in place to ensure meaningful participation of underrepresented communities? And this doesn't necessarily sometimes mean that they are based in developing countries. There are sometimes underrepresented communities that are in the developed world, and we have not reached out to them. So how do we do that? How do we ensure meaningful participation? And by meaningful participation, I actually mean that they bring their perspective. It's not just a one-sided conversation or lecture. And I just wanted to also mention the role of the Dynamic Coalition on Internet Governance Schools that at IGF, they have this community of schools and educators that brings forward these experiences, and they share experiences and they share knowledge. And I have gone through a lot of interviews that Glenn did with the schools, and it seems like they really learn from each other. So that the Dynamic Coalition would like to also know how they can like help more to bring forward the underrepresented communities. So if there are for meaningful participation, if there are any more comments on that, I would like to hear more about it. But it seems like you feel like we've covered everything. Okay. Hans's hand is up, but is it an old hand?
Sorry, that's an old hand. I'll take that.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. Okay. So, and I think that Nnenna's comments about can be applied to the underrepresented communities as well. So let's go to the last question, that is about what are the practical factors that one should consider when organizing a course, a school, an online program. What sort of logistics do you think we need to consider? And this also goes back to the point that we want to create something that people who have never done this, never taught, and want to teach a course, they want to they can use this document and benefit from it. So what are these practical factors? What has been your experience with teaching internet governance? What do you suggest that they start from? What should they not do? So if you can raise your hand, or did we cover a lot of things? Just out of energy now. All right. Okay. Oh, Hans, that's a new hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a new hand. When I teach the class, I find that internet governance, as I said, it raises incredible theoretical issues. So it's a great place to be an academic. And if you're a great place to do a PhD, but a lot of our students are not doing PhDs. So although I do a lot of theory in my class, I illustrate all my theoretical points with news articles. I use a lot of news articles that connect theory to current events. So I think it's the Gigalaw news aggregator I find very interesting for English language US news. And I'm constantly selecting articles. I have my students subscribe to that. And the challenge is to always connect it to current events, because most of my students are interested in current events. But to understand the current events, they kind of have to do theory. So I'm constantly bouncing back and forth between the two. And I think that's important for the class.
All right, great. Thank you, Hans. Dima, your hand is up.
Interesting. I did not mean to talk about this, but I'm doing a similar exercise in my class where students need to kind of connect readings to news articles. But I think my point about preparation was mostly I think one perhaps of the differences between how I envision, for example, summer schools on internet governance, where people come there because they're interested in the topic. A lot of my students come to my classes not necessarily because they're interested, but because that was the class that best fit their schedule on that day. And then my task becomes sort of, recruiting them and bringing them on the, into the internet governance world. And if there is something that I learned in that process is that, not to assume that people have any prior knowledge. And sometimes it's difficult being in this space to to start really from the beginning, and also with this task of bringing, linking specifics to theory, etc. So not to assume prior knowledge. That was my main takeaway so far.
Excellent, thank you. Elliot, it's your turn.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone. I want to draw out a difference between a course and a discipline a little bit here. It's knowing the number of the people on the call. I see there are practitioners on the call. And what I started out with a question for Hans, which is what leads to discipline, which is what are the prerequisites, the knowledge prerequisites for a course? And it occurred to me that maybe there are none at the base level, but maybe what we're really talking about here are multiple courses. And that's where it begins to feel a little bit more like a field or a discipline. And I wonder if people could engage on that point. Thank you.
Yeah, that's actually something that I have been thinking about, because whether this is like a discipline or a course, but at the moment, the approach is to consider this as a course because that's just more manageable, and then just have modules and topics. But we can, Hans can address that. If I can go to Ginger and Serena first, and then we can discuss that. Great point. Thank you. Okay, Ginger, go ahead, please.
Thanks, everybody. These are really interesting perspectives. And several people, Dima just recently, talked about beginners and people who are inadvertently thrown into IT. And I'm going to speak now from the perspective of a complete novice. When I came into internet governance, the only qualification I had to be in internet governance was that I spoke English. I was living in Venezuela. I was part of the United Nations Association of Venezuela, which was part of the United Nations Association's task force on WSIS. And I knew absolutely nothing. I was thrown into it because Venezuela was part of the task force. I lived in Venezuela. I was their volunteer translator. All of a sudden, I found myself as project officer because there simply was no one else. I knew nothing. I was fortunate to hit upon the Internet Governance Caucus mailing list and the Diplo call for applications. And I can tell you that even though I am one of the most privileged people in the world, for that course, I was too old. I was from an advantaged country. Even though I represented Venezuela, I had none of the qualifications. I wrote a plea, a motivation letter, and was admitted to the course. And that was life-changing for me and for many of the people who were my fellow participants, because we knew nothing and we needed this knowledge to get into and make change. For me, in this case, it was in Venezuela. We didn't have access, we didn't have knowledge. So while all of these specialized courses are extremely important, and then Diplo gives a postgraduate focus area in the master's program in internet governance. But the courses that I think really make a difference are these entry-level courses for people who want to or need to get involved. So this is a plea to not forget about entry-level people who are not yet ready for advanced courses and concepts, but this is how we bring new people and vulnerable groups, unheard voices into the area. So please, let's not underestimate that need. And I'm going to throw in, of course, like I always do, Spanish is the most spoken language in the world. I think we need to be doing more in Spanish. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ginger. Yes, we consider that, and I think it was brought up also, like when we talk about core topics and core modules, and then like more specialized modules. So Serena, you're next. Serena, go ahead.
Thank you, Fars. Hi, everyone. Sorina Telanu, School on Internet Governance, Digital Policies and Innovation, which is a very regional school for Southeastern Europe and the neighboring area. And from that perspective, one thing we always consider when we start planning this, and which is not at all related to content, is fundraising and budget. We're trying to get money to cover the whole program or as much as possible for our participants so they don't have to pay. Because for our region, even a 400 or 500 euro or USD dollars, that would be too much and no one would be able to cover it, even if we mostly target mid-level professionals. People won't be really in a position to support that on their own. So that's one of the most important things we try to do at the beginning of starting to plan a school. And I think that's also something important to keep in mind, especially if you're targeting developing countries. Thanks.
Great, $1 million question. Thank you, Serena, for raising that. I see Raymond's hand up. We have only 10 minutes, so I'm going to give 2 minutes to Raymond and then come to Hans to talk about that hot topic of discipline versus course, and then we can wrap it up. Raymond, go ahead.
Okay, so with regards to teaching IG, the approach that I adopt is to make it a bit practical for the participant to relate to. So for instance, if I'm teaching them how to join the at-large mailing list, I give them the link for them to see practically how they can join. So those are some of the approaches that I adopt.
Great. So it's like more holding hand, kind of like referencing as you're talking, so that they can have like real experience with these mailing lists. Okay, Hans, your hand is up, and please take the floor.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to take Elliot's comments a little further. Is it a discipline or a course? I think you can do it as a course and do a pretty good job of covering the material. I personally have worked very hard on that, and I'm almost there. But there's a lot to cover. But the stuff you have to cover is kind of mind-boggling. I've really personally had to really get familiarity with a lot of political science, where you have international relations, national policy making, sectoral regulation. These are all sub areas within political science. You really need to know law. There's a lot of law in internet governance, and you really need to know STS studies, the interaction of society and technology, and it helps to have some engineering in there as well. So you can do a survey in one course, but I try, as I survey it, I get syllabi from my colleagues and I say, okay, the next 2 weeks maps onto this entire semester course. The next 2 weeks maps onto international relations and so on. So that's, you can do both, but the key thing is I think you can substantially cover the internet governance as a single course. So Farzi, I think your project here is a good one, and I think you've defined your goal is feasible in doing this. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Hans. So we are going to wrap up now. I'm going to tell you about the grand plans I have. And if you have like further comments, let me know. I'm going to incorporate your comments here and consider them while designing the syllabus. If you have a syllabi that you teach, or if you have programs that are not accessible online and I don't know about them, I mean, I just reach out to me. I will put my email address here in chat. And this is a continuing discussion. We need to have this discussion regardless of this project, I think. And in order to do that, we can also kind of build a community of teachers and educators, which already exists at the Dynamic Coalition on Internet Governance Schools. And we can also work on these various Google Docs that I have shared with you to have your feedback. But then we should really, if we want to connect communities, because there are communities out there, to connect communities so that we go beyond feedback and we can work together and learn more and come up with better plans. Then I will Okay, so I was planning to have this. This might not happen, but I was planning to have receive the perspective of those who actually learn IG and internet governance and see what they think learning IG and the internet governance should be about. This was supposed to be a webinar. I don't know if we have the time to do that, but if there is enough interest from you and the learners, then I'd be happy to do another one to talk about these various modes. And Dima, your hand is up.
Yes, I kind of wrote it already in the chat, but so one of the things that I do, I don't know if everybody knows, I'm chairing the GigaNet, Global Internet Governance Academic Network, and we've been trying to build a repository of internet governance syllabi towards this kind of commons of internet governance teaching resources. So I posted a link in the chat, and I invite you to submit your resources so that we could share them on the platform as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And if you have any, if you're a tutor or somebody like who teaches internet governance, and you want to tell me that because I'm also like putting together the teachers of internet governance from around the world, just let me know. And I don't think this is going to be a static a document that we can't add to it. We can develop it further and work together and teach internet governance to the world. Okay, great. Anything else? Any other comments? Thank you so much for engaging. Maitrey. I hope
very close. Thank you. So I just wanted to put this out there that if since there was no answer to my question, if anybody is doing this for children, if I wanted to reach out to somebody for guidance, who could I? Because I am a children's educator, and since I became an inSIG fellow in 2019, I've been thinking about this. I've been toying about this idea, and it's taken me a lot of courage to even put this out there. But if anybody is okay with me getting in touch just to sort of bounce some ideas, I'd be happy to, exchange some teaching techniques and basically do a knowledge exchange with someone. So thank you.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That I think that is one of the, teaching high school students about internet governance, and that's I don't think we have focused on that on this enough, and I think it might actually fit our a more specialized course, or maybe help the teachers that want to teach internet governance to high school students and children. Why am I saying high school students all the time? So I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with the network, and also like benefit from your experience. And Wolfgang hand is up too. Wolfgang.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. When Sorina spoke about the budget, so this is a critical point for all the schools. So I remember that discussion, and I did put already an idea in the chat when we tried to start the first African summer school during the IGF in Nairobi. It was in 2011. I organized a meeting with SIDA, the Swedish development agencies, and we discussed it with the friends from Kenya. And then they were very excited. The SIDA has a big budget, of several $100 million. And then they asked it, how much would it be to sponsor the African summer school? And we calculated a little bit, and our answer was around 150,000, 2,000 euros. And the answer was no way, because this is too less for us. We start projects with 2 million. So everything below 2 million, this is out of scope, because we have then such a high bureaucratical work. If we are dealing with these small projects, we see that we concentrate on big projects. So, but a small African school does not fit into the understanding of a big project. But now with the dynamic coalition and the IGF on its way to IGF Plus and part of the common agenda, which is sponsored by Secretary General Guterres and the Global Digital Compact on the horizon, if we are able to bundle the 25 plus summer schools and to develop a project of around 4 or 5 million, and then approach the agencies in Sweden, in Denmark, Danida, or in Finland, and all these development agencies. So I think this would be help us to manage it. Then you need certainly a more bureaucracy in the IGF Secretariat. Then you have to have somebody who negotiates with them, who distributes it. So it's additional work. But in a certain way, we have reached now a moment with the summer schools. There we have to think big. And so far, really we go, school by school by school. And this is perfect. This is wonderful. We collect a lot of ideas. But in the long run, this has no perspective if we do not move to the next level. And I think this is ahead of us, and we have to take this step. And probably, Hassan, you are the right person, a good negotiator. But discuss this with the Secretariat, and probably we should really start thinking big, at least during the next IGF in Ethiopia.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Wolfgang. And with that, I wanted to thank everybody. This was an amazing session. I learned a lot, and hopefully you managed to give us all your feedback. And as Wolfgang said, we need to think about the next step to go beyond, to do some kind of collective action and go beyond separate individual schools or programs, and do something grand together, and hopefully that will happen. I will keep you updated about the progress of this report. Thank you very much for all of your feedback and engagement. Thank you.